Very lucky to have with us Puteri Sofia. Puteri Sofia, thank you for joining us today. And we're going to be talking about the evolving reality of legal education. And we want to understand why is this important. I want to know why it's important. I'm thinking I want my lawyers to be highly educated. But I'm also going to straight away ask you first, how are you, Puteri? Sorry, we got straight into this discussion.
I'm good. Thank you so much, Nordin, for having me right here. And it's my pleasure to be sharing my insights as well as finding from my research with regards to the future of legal education, especially in Malaysia.
Nice, nice. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the Center for Industrial Revolution and Innovation, or CHIRI as it's well known as. Could you tell us a bit more about it? Where is it located, and what is the work that's going on there?
Okay, CIRI actually stands for Center of Industrial Revolution and Innovation. It is currently based at Taylor's University and it's actually a research center. So we have a team of data scientists as well as experts in research who are willing to assist and support the corporate or even the SMEs to conduct research on how to analyze data as well as to conduct literature review so that the findings can greatly assist the organization on how they can best pivot their businesses or even re-strategize the way that they conduct businesses. So that's what we essentially do at CIRI.
Okay, nice. Is that purely for the legal reality, or is it also does it include a broader spectrum of things as well?
Oh yes, it goes beyond than just doing legal research. Our team consists a lot of data scientists from various backgrounds. So there are data scientists or researchers focusing on family business, focusing on gig economy, focusing on how the environment affects the financial market. So it limitless actually. Anything that the
Okay, nice.
organization requires assistance in terms of conducting research. So Siri is more than happy to assist.
Okay, I'm looking forward to physically being able to visit the facilities and of course Taylor's College and Taylor's University now. I've been in Malaysia for a very long time, so I started my understanding of Taylor's many years ago. Has come leaps and bounds in terms of developing itself as an institution. Now, how did you yourself get involved in the law?
Okay, so honestly, I have this great passion to become a lawyer since 1996 when I was 10 years old. The reason being is because my late grandfather himself was a state lawyer, and in my grandparents' house there is a library full of encyclopedias and law journals. So it got me inspired to read law. So as I grow, so I joined the institution, pursue law. Then during the course of reading law, that's when I realized why law needs to be so challenging. It's very doctrinal basis. So that's when I thought legal education can be revamped to make it much more engaging, interactive, which focuses on students sharpening critical thinking as opposed to memorizing what we learn. So after I've graduated, I pursued the bar, passed the bar exam, got admitted into the bar, and then it took me 3 months to decide if I want to practice as a lawyer or go back to the academia and give my best to introduce what I thought was missing. And from that moment, I never looked back. So it was supposed to be like a 2 year period, and now it has been about 8 years already.
Oh, very nice, very nice. And hi, Farisa, thank you for joining us as well. Now, when you looked at the law as quote unquote being boring and doctrinated, how does this impact when we look at developing new lawyers out of Malaysia? And of course, we've seen immense amount of interest in the law lately. Whether it's looking at the Constitution or Act 432, which we're all kind of living under right now in Malaysia, but the the law has somehow found its way into everyone's daily lives. Where before it was like you only dealt with a lawyer if something was really bad and something went really wrong. or if you're buying a house. So these kind of things. So how are you going to make the law and lawyers, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of bad lawyer jokes just waiting to pop up in the comments. By all means, put them there. But how are you going to make it more human? How are you going to bring this new style of learning to the legal education field?
I absolutely agree with you. We're talking about the internet era, the democratization of information. Everything is one click away. Even before most people go see lawyer, they probably have Googled their issue to see what are the answers available out there. So when it comes to engaging with lawyers, why lawyers are valuable, it all boils down to the legal education that they receive at law school. But then, when we talk about the legal education in law school, there are actually three school of thoughts. One school of thought actually talk about the law school are responsible to shape the law students so that they become future-ready lawyers. So we're talking about future-ready legal practitioners. There's another school of thought that talk about a law student should immediately become the tomorrow's lawyer. So there are expectation. The moment you have completed 3 or 4 years law degree, you can already act like a lawyer. And there is a third school of thought that talks about law school only provides or impart legal knowledge so that students acquire the relevant basic knowledge towards the information that's available before they can actually practice as a lawyer. So these three school of thoughts actually have been in existence since 50 years ago, and similar issues are already being discussed in today's time. Now it's already 2021. So to me, my personal thoughts based on my own personal experience and reading, we cannot treat legal education at law school purely as an academic setting. We also need to assist the lawyers because they are all practitioners, so they cannot be expected to handhold law students the moment they have passed the bar to teach them from scratch in terms of the practical aspect of the legal practice. So perhaps law school can embrace like a hybrid approach, integrate some element of practical into the legal education so that law
Mhm.
students would be at least be prepared to think like a lawyer once they have graduated and completed the bar.
Exactly, and it's very easy to look like a lawyer and act like a lawyer, but it's very difficult to be a good lawyer. And one of those things that I'm often dealing with in terms of crisis management, and especially when we look at what's going on in the sphere of crisis communications, a lot of it is to do with comments on social media and dealing with this idea of defamatory remarks and the legal reality around that. In a sense, we have this one part of the equation is a legal equation, another part is a technology equation, and it finds its way into social media, and people have this kind of, again, this tripartite problem that's converging. What has your research found? What is your ideas moving forward for this area?
Yes, that's absolutely true. People are becoming much more vocal on the social media platform as opposed in person. So to them, if they're sharing their thoughts, it's considered as a freedom of sharing opinions. So they thought it's under the constitution. They can just say whatever they want. But of course, the rights under the constitution is only limited to an extent. It doesn't mean that you have absolute rights or absolute freedom just to say whatever that you want to say, to the extent that it can be defamatory. So because the public, they do not know so much about the law, perhaps the role of the lawyers or even law lecturers can continue to support by creating like webinars, because I see a lot of lawyers doing webinars nowadays to advocate about human rights, about rights when it comes to social media, what you can or what you shouldn't do. So these are the continuous effort that should be embraced by both lawyers as well as legal educators.
Nice, nice. We've got a couple other questions here. I want to go first to a fun question, and then we'll go to the difficult question after this. Shafika Effa has asked a question around this idea of she had fun studying the law as a media law. I don't think she's a lawyer, but it was fun for her. How do you make learning uh, a legal subject fun? You know, a lot of people may just take a semester worth of law or a module of it. How do you make it fun?
Okay, so for myself, I try to inject some elements of gamification to motivate students' effort or curiosity in order to learn law. So when I say inject elements of gamification, so that's where I introduce a point-based system where students' participation, students' efforts are all being recognized. If they come to class half an hour early, they'll get 10 points. If they answer or share their thoughts, they'll get points. Even though it's wrong, it's okay because law school provides a platform for students to try, fail, and try again. My objective is to get students to go outside the comfort zone. So I'll try to integrate a Mission Impossible assignment brief or a detective show, mystery game. So this would get students to be curious in terms of learning law. Then after that, they themselves will assume the role as a secret agent or Watson to reply to the question that Detective Sofia is asking. Students get to remember the process of learning. They will remember what book, which paragraph they referred to. They will remember the mistake that they made. So these are the elements of fun that I try to make, but it's not for the purpose of making law school as a game. It's just that to get students motivated when it comes to learning law.
Okay, I think I want to sign up for some of your classes. This sounds like fun. But now moving to a very serious question, and we're talking about reforming the legal education system. Are there specific reforms that we need to roll out in Malaysia from a government perspective, from an stakeholder perspective that will make Malaysia a better location to study law and to study the broader context of law?
Okay, so based on my research, when we look at the legal education offered in US, offered in Australia, as well as in Malaysia, most law schools are at an inflection point, at a turning point, where the traditional model of education does not match the changing needs in the market, especially in the legal industry. So when we talk about revamping the legal education, it's not revamping the entire syllabus per se. Perhaps a starting point that can be considered by law school is to integrate some elements of future of law, future of legal practice, or any future possible legal issues in each of the modules that the law schools are offering. Because we have to be mindful that law schools are governed by a certain regulatory body. There are certain modules that we need to offer as a core module, either in Malaysia or in United States or in United Kingdom. So as long as we adhere to the requirements, but we can also integrate elements of future law, possible future legal disputes. So this can make a learning process to be much more enriching and meaningful for the students.
Nice, nice. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and you keep using this idea of future and future proofing, which is really exciting because one of the things I like to study is future studies. And one of the things that we look at is what are the realities 20, 30, 40 years from now, and how can we backcast that into today's actions? What do you see are some of the crisis points for the legal profession in Malaysia in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, that's actually quite a difficult question, I would say.
Good. I don't want to give you all the easy ones.
Because when we talk about future skills, there's so many research that talks about what are the future skills needed by the industry. Of course, the first point of reference, we refer to the World Economic Forums that talks about the future skills needed in 2030. So the list includes like ability to solve, no longer problem solving, but complex problem solving, ability to critically think, as well as creatively think. Because in the past, they only focus on critical thinking. But as of today, even creative thinking is also needed, as well as there's a need where students are able to read or use data analytics, elements of IT. So these are the skills that are needed, but I believe it's not only limited to legal education, but it applies throughout all disciplines as well.
I want to go into this idea of multidiscipline education because sometimes, and I play cricket in Malaysia. We have a joke. If the cricket team is either full of lawyers or full of doctors, and and it's wonderful, and it's but when we look at some of this changing realities of the economy, changing realities of of what the future holds for Malaysia post COVID-19, we realize that there's a need for this interdisciplinary approach to education. And in a sense, and I'm not saying this about the guys I play cricket with, are the dinosaur era lawyers, where they're in this, I love them, this big, beautiful lawyer office with all the books that you mentioned. This is the perfect photo that I want to see when I go and see a lawyer, because I know he's read all those books and I know he's a really smart guy. But now when we talk about data, when we talk about analytics, it's all on a screen, it's all in a graph. How is especially Chiri and Taylor's bringing this interdimensional, interdisciplinary approach to education? How are you guys delivering that?
Okay, I can see you've done your homework. So when we
I
talk
should
about
do.
when we talk about legal education or any field, as a matter of fact, it is essential actually nowadays for any graduates to have elements outside their conventional discipline. Just like you highlighted with regards to interdisciplinary, I must admit, if you talk about data analytics in detail, algorithm, I have no knowledge on those areas. So that's where I can supplement my strength together the strength of someone who is an expert in the area of algorithm. At Taylor's University, we actually revamped the curriculum framework where all students are encouraged to either adopt a minor degree or a major degree in addition to the conventional degree that they are doing. So this would encourage students to go beyond than the syllabus or their modules covered under the degree and explores other areas as well. Like for example, law students, they can go and learn about entrepreneurships, about business, fintech, blockchain, in addition to the core or electives module. So these are my thoughts when it comes to multidisciplinary. It will be beneficial also for lawyers to employ graduates who acquire this multidisciplinary, because when it comes to technical terms on certain areas, perhaps these graduates can also share what they have learned, or when it comes to upskilling or reskilling, they can also integrate at their future workplace.
Mm-hmm. Lovely, lovely. And we've got some really good questions coming in now. One is around this idea of Socratic roots and moving towards this more practical approach to learning. And I want to add to this question. Now, you've got a run of the mill lawyer. Okay, he's good. But now, if he starts to specialize in law that impacts data or law that impacts social media, how much more employable is he, or how much more valuable is he as an intellectual asset moving forward? And is this something that you guys are looking at?
I don't have a statistic that to answer that specific question with regards to employability. If someone has detailed experience to read data, but I know because a lot of organization, they try to harness as much data as possible, because data is the new oil. It's so valuable. By understanding what the consumer wants, that's how they can re-strategize their business model. Same goes for law firms who try to get as much data as possible. Our researcher at CU will be able to assist on how to read those data. But I know for sure if have that skills to read data or to analyze data, you're definitely much more employable as compared to just graduates who understand what has been imparted to them on the doctrinal or Socratic method.
Mhm. Lovely, lovely. I've got so many good questions for today. And I want to thank everyone who has been asking questions. And this is like almost a machine gun interview. And I apologize because I want to get through all of the questions. Another one, which is again talking about interdisciplinary training and the international law. How many people also are coming to Malaysia to study law? Is Malaysia a global destination for studying law, and what are your thoughts there?
Okay. Essentially, because of nowadays, educations are available at all countries. So most learners, they would like to travel not only to acquire the degree, but they also would like to learn about the culture at the respective countries that they prefer. So in Malaysia, it has been actually quite a good destination for a lot of students abroad to study here. But similarly, we also have students in Malaysia who prefer to go to UK, Australia, or even US to pursue their education as well. But what I know for sure is that because of this COVID-19 pandemic, it has been like a silver lining to all of us, because at first we were fearful that we're going to lose a lot of international students because they are unable to travel to Malaysia. But what COVID pandemic has shown is that when students are determined to pursue their education, be it in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, whatever countries, barriers is no longer an issue because knowledge can be acquired in a wireless platform. So we still receive international students. They still enroll into our program, and I must say I admire their dedication because of the time difference. So sometimes when I conduct classes at 8 a.m., there are students in their respective country, which is 3 or 4 p.m. They're wide awake. That reflects that time difference is not an issue. The fact that they cannot fly in and to learn physically also not an issue. So it emphasized again on the democratization of information, especially in times of pandemic.
Nice, nice. I want to know whether they were waking up early or still asleep from still not gone to sleep from the day before. But that's another part of your research. Now, David has asked us a question in terms of producing graduates out of Malaysia who can practice in other nations. What is that component of what, especially what you're doing at Taylor's, in terms of people coming here studying law and then going back to their particular country? Can they study? Can they practice law in those countries, or what is that process for someone who is thinking about coming to Malaysia?
Yes. So at Taylor's Law School, when we offer law degree for Malaysian students, our degree is recognized by our legal profession qualifying board. But I have to put a disclaimer there. Depending on which jurisdiction that you are from, so I would advise before considering to traveling to any country to pursue your education, first check with the regulatory body whether they recognize university from that particular country, because I wouldn't be able to provide a conclusive answer because there are so many jurisdictions, and because of constraint we aren't able to do research on every country whether they recognize Malaysian law degree. But I know for sure, in order to practice in your respective country, most country would prefer degree graduated from their respective home country, or most country recognize degree from UK. But in at Taylor's University, you still can pursue your law degree here for 1 or 2 years, and for your final year, you can transfer to UK and you will graduate with the law degree from that UK university. So you will have exposure learning law in Malaysia as well as learning law in another country as well.
Okay, okay, no worries. Now, to change gears a little bit and to look at what's going on. Are you guys now fully back to in-person training, in-person classes, or are you still online? And what's your preference?
Okay, so we'll be going back to campus on phases basis
Mhm.
starting next week. So I'm looking forward to see some of my students. At Taylor's University, we are mindful of the fear that some students do not want to go on campus. We also have international students who are still abroad, students from Sabah and Sarawak, all over the place. So we give them an option. You still can opt to attend a tutorial session face to face if you want to come on campus.
Mhm.
But otherwise, there are also slots, 3, 4 slots available for you to join the online session. We only do the face to face session for tutorial, but for lecture, we'll still continue delivering online because our huge number of students.
Okay, nice, nice. Now that's interesting. And one of the things that I'm seeing more and more, in, especially around KL, is there are more people out and about, and I think slowly things are returning to normal. And I think one of those key areas is when children return to primary school, high school, and of course universities. And I think for university students, I think they're old enough to have already been vaccinated. So I think that actually makes it a lot easier and a lot safer as well. So as we close off today, Sophia, is there any last parting words that you would want to give us, and also to kind of answer um, this last question here around this idea of becoming a lecturer, and the kind of your career journey and the kind of pleasure that you've been able to get out of this journey. Could you share with us a little bit of that, and also what should other people who are looking to take a similar journey consider when they take this important step?
Okay, thank you so much for that opportunity. So I have a few angles that I'm going to try to answer. One is as a future academic, one as parent, as well as one as student. Back in 1986, the year that I was born, there was a famous saying which says that life flies so fast. So can you imagine now in 2021 with the pace of changes, which is accelerating at warp speed, where everything is buoyed by technological advancement, things are not only changing fast, they are changing really, really fast. So for any aspired academician, fret not. I'm not saying that you need to know technology, that you need to have all these digitalized skills. We all believe in the power of sharing. You come with the strength. So whatever that the institution can support you, we will train you. So same goes for law students, because law students, they believe on all the TV drama with regards to legal suits and everything. So they thought what they perceive as law, that's how law school is going to be like. But our teams of academics, we meet with lawyers. We have our legal academic profession board, which provide advice on how we should continue shaping the student. We should get students to go outside than memorizing the law. Even if students feel it's difficult, lectures do provide guidance and support. So for those who want to pursue law, so don't be worried that if you don't know about data analytics, then you cannot study law. So as parents also, it's a good investment if you can support your children's education instead of focusing on one degree, perhaps can allow them to join any short courses or online courses that talks about additional skills that are in demand or in needs in the market. So that will create a good ecosystem where everyone is supporting each other's ambition, and that's how the legal education in Malaysia can continue to rise and thrive in competition with other law school around the world.
Mm. Wow, excellent. Now, actually, I promised that was going to be the last question, but I've already broken my promise. I've got another question I want to ask you, and you touched on it just now. We see a lot of Western dramas, and even dramas out of Hong Kong, and all around the place, which involve lawyers. Are there any good Malaysian lawyer dramas, and should we have some come up?
That's a
Is
good
this
question.
important? No, is it like it's important to know, because like they become role models. Like, oh, I want to be like the guy in Law and Order, or I want to be like the guy on, I don't know if people want to be like Sherlock Holmes anymore. Maybe it's too old, but so what are your ideas in terms of using media as to generate role models that we want to create for the future?
I think that's a good channel actually, because people watch movies, they feel they aspire from what they have watched. Even people still watch legal drama and think that's what a real court life is all about. But if we can have a legal drama which closely reflect the reality, plus some elements which requires lawyers in the movie to upskill and reskill themselves and inject some virtual reality or augmented reality elements, so it can broaden this perspective about what future legal practice entails.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you for your time today, Puteri Sofia. I really appreciate your insights, your ideas, and your energy. It's wonderful. And with that, I want to thank everyone also for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week on a working lunch with Nordin.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.